When I saw that, I thought, okay, 254,000 jobs. What other industry supports 254,000 jobs? The nuclear power industry.
Wow.
And so we're an industry of people that are powering conservation throughout the globe. And so AZA is the way that those aspirations of Tennessee Aquarium or Knoxville Zoo or Woodland Park Zoo, that their aspirations get amplified across that entire industry, and we're proud to play that role.
You're the bullhorn.
We're the bullhorn, exactly. Yeah, good.
Hey there, Podcast Aquanauts. It's your host, Casey here. Recently, I packed a bag, sealed the hatch on the Studio Dive Cage's mobile submarine reporting unit, and set off for Tampa, Florida, the host site for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums annual conference. The purpose of that visit was to speak as part of a panel on podcasting at zoos and aquariums alongside friends who host the official podcast of the Aquarium of the Pacific, the Aquarium of the Podcific. And while I was there, I took advantage of an opportunity to sit down for a chat with Dan Ashe, the longtime president and CEO of the AZA. The former director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Ashe spent years working with wildlife managers and conservationists from inside and outside the political sphere. He has brought that experience to bear as head of the association that ensures the Tennessee Aquarium and more than 250 other zoos and aquariums around the world maintain the highest possible standards in all aspects of their organization, including, above all, the well-being of the animals in their care. Guests on the podcast Aquatic name drop the AZA all the time. And if you've ever been curious what the association does, how it's changed in its 101-year history, and what AZA accreditation says about a zoo or aquarium you're planning to visit, this discussion will hopefully give you some valuable insights. Anyway, let's get things rolling, shall we? On with the podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. We are on the road today. We're down in Tampa, Florida for the AZA annual conference. That is an acronym that we drop on this show all the time, and I have to roll it back and explain that AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. That is the accrediting body for zoos and aquariums in America and a lot of other countries, as we'll soon discuss. And today I thought, who better to introduce the AZA to those of you listening to this show than the president and CEO of AZA, Dan Ashe. Thank you so much for joining us at the conference. I know you're so busy today.
It's great to be here with you. Thanks for doing the podcast, and it's an exciting beginning for our 2025 annual conference.
So this is a record-breaking conference. There are a lot of people here, and as we were talking before the mics got on, that this is actually the most people who've ever been at a conference for AZA.
Yeah, the AZA annual conference is the largest meeting of zoological professionals in the world. In 2023, we met in Columbus, Ohio, had a great conference there, and that set a record of just over 2,800 attendees. And we just learned this morning that we passed the 3,000 mark here in Tampa, so smashing the record for attendance. And I think that really reflects the enthusiasm that's in our community and the momentum that we have going forward.
What do you think is behind that enthusiasm? Why are people behind the AZA now like they've never been before?
I think it's in part the things that we're working on together and the alignment that we feel amongst our members. So we're here thinking about how we can be better at guest service, how we can be better at running the businesses of zoos and aquariums, and also how we can sustain the animal populations that we all depend on. We are zoos and aquariums, and the core of our business is animals. And so we have the best professionals in the world here talking about how we can ensure that there's a future where we're going to have access to animals. And then also the care of those animals, that we've started a well-being initiative 3 years ago in Baltimore. And so a lot of energy around how we care for animals and how we can be better and really think about not just the physical needs of animals, but their social and psychological needs, so that when people come to our member facilities, that they're seeing animals that are not just surviving, they're thriving. And so that's exciting. And then the conservation part of the story, right? So that our members increasingly are gateways to nature and helping people. We're all more and more, we're urban creatures, and we're losing connection to nature. And so people gathered here to talk about how we can tell stories, how we can engage people, and how we can really kind of get them engaged in the conservation of nature. So many exciting things going on here.
Now, I'm in typical fashion. I need to back things up just a little bit because I'm putting the cart firmly before the horse. The whole point of this conversation, other than just getting a chance to talk to you, we've met before. You were able to visit the aquarium a few years ago, and we'll talk about that. But before, we should talk about who is AZA and why do you exist? What are you there to do as far as the zoos and aquariums you represent or who make up your member body, and also the public and their interaction with those zoos and aquariums?
Yeah, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, it's several things. At our core is accreditation. So we are an accrediting body. You have to be accredited in order to be a member. And our accreditation standards represent the gold standard for a modern aquarium or zoo, and the global gold standard. So if you're accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, you're not just a great aquarium, you are one of the world's best. And so we exist to represent excellence across this community and reflect the kind of overall aspiration to continue to improve. As we learn more, we do better. We're also a professional community. We have over 9,000 professional members of the association, so the very best in the field. And so we're a community. We provide networking services and professional development services. And then, of course, we're like a trade organization. So we represent our members in state and national legislative and regulatory policy issues. So we're a three-faceted organization: accreditor, professional community, and trade association.
So as far as the people who are listening to this conversation, who are thinking about visiting a zoo or aquarium, when you see that accreditation listing on a website that this facility you're thinking about visiting is an AZA member, what I'm hearing from you is you can feel good about visiting that facility.
Yeah, that's the most important thing for the public to know, because I think really in many respects they have control, right? There are a lot of organizations that display animals that really don't deserve their support. And so what they can do is they can look for that AZA accreditation, and that way they know that they're visiting a place that puts the interests of those animals first and foremost, and that their visit is not only supporting those animals, but is supporting their relatives in nature, and that their visit is having an impact on saving animals from extinction and conserving nature across the globe. And Tennessee Aquarium really kind of reflects that. Is that it's a great place to visit. You're going to have fun. You can be with family and friends and have a great day. You're going to learn something, but you're contributing to the conservation of animals in nature. And what I love about Tennessee Aquarium is it's not only the big charismatic animals, but it's the little fish that live in Appalachian streams and rivers, and a lot of things that don't get the attention that many other species do.
That's true. The freshwater focus is one of the things that sets us apart from a lot of other aquariums and the aquariums that are here at this conference. We do have that unique spotlight that we shine on a lot of that aquatic life in those freshwater ecosystems. And I know that's got to be close to your heart because in a past life, in your former life, before you were head of the AZA, you came from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So what was your role there, and how did that transition happen?
Yeah, I had a long career in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so served in many capacities, including chief of the National Wildlife Refuge System, science advisor to the director, deputy director, and then during the Obama administration was privileged to be nominated to be director, and served in that capacity for 6 years. And so really, it's a humbling opportunity to be able to have that kind of influence in the conservation world. But in that capacity, I knew zoos and aquariums like the Tennessee Aquarium because of their powerful work. So San Diego Zoo and Hawaiian Birds, SeaWorld and Georgia Aquarium and Zoo Tampa and Manatee Rescue, National Aquarium in Baltimore and New England Aquarium and Sea Turtle Rescue and Rehabilitation, red wolf, Mexican wolf, hellbender, freshwater fishes. So much of the work that the Fish and Wildlife Service was doing was being supported directly by AZA accredited zoos and aquariums. So I had the opportunity to know zoos and aquariums, and then as I was leaving the Fish and Wildlife Service, this job came open, and I was like, oh my gosh, not just the chance to be affiliated with people that are doing inspiring conservation work on the ground, but people that more than 200 million people visit every year. And if we're going to make a difference in nature conservation, it's because we're going to reach people, and we're going to reach their minds, but we're going to reach their heart.
Their hearts.
Yeah,
absolutely. So when was the transition? When did you take over at AZA? How long ago?
It was January of 2017.
Okay.
I started at AZA, so I'm coming up on 10 years.
And also coming up on 10 years, or actually I guess just past 10 years, and it ties in very nicely with what you were just talking about, is the AZA SAFE program. So that's the AZA Saving Animals from Extinction. We like to throw acronyms around a lot, but I have to roll things back and explain it.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what AZA SAFE is, but also how it ties into the work that's being done to change hearts and minds and to make people feel that connection with nature, and also to feel good about supporting zoos and aquariums in that they are having that impact you mentioned earlier on native wildlife?
Yeah, AZA SAFE, Saving Animals from Extinction, was started as a way to really harness the collective power of AZA accredited aquariums and zoos. And all of them are doing some kind of conservation work. They're all working with partners in the conservation community and government, but AZA SAFE is an endeavor to try to get more of our members doing more conservation by working together. And so things like AZA Sharks and Rays. Many of our members for a long time have been working on the conservation of sharks and rays. AZA Sharks and Rays is bringing them all together, harnessing that collective power so that we can have a bigger impact on conservation. AZA freshwater turtles, I know that Tennessee Aquarium has been a leader there, again, reaching across our membership to give many of our members an opportunity to participate in really inspiring conservation. And sometimes, especially for our smaller members, they don't have enough resources necessarily to drive their own conservation program, but AZA SAFE gives them an entry point so they can work with other members to amplify work. So there's opportunity to engage more members, do more conservation at larger scale.
Well, and the AZA SAFE American Turtles program you just mentioned is it's an interesting intersection between the zoo and aquarium world and the law enforcement world. So the people who are collecting a lot of these turtles or confiscating turtles that would otherwise have ended up, on ships or planes bound for other places. We're doing the work of lending our expertise in animal care to helping law enforcement do law enforcement work and concentrate on that, and while we concentrate on taking care of these animals that have been removed from the wild. Do you feel like SAFE then kind of encapsulates both of the roles that you've had, both leadership of AZA, but also your past life working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife? Does this feel like a good intersection of those two responsibilities and roles?
Oh yeah, it's a perfect intersection for me, and the wildlife confiscations issue is that exact intersection, because as director of Fish and Wildlife Service, what I learned was the Fish and Wildlife Service has a cadre of law enforcement professionals. They're the most highly trained forensic wildlife investigators in the world. But they come across a shipment of box turtles in LaGuardia airport, box turtles that are going out of the country for the pet trade, and they have to stop their work and figure out, okay, what are we going to do with these animals? Not just because of the welfare of the animals, because those animals are now evidence. So they have to be taken care of as evidence of a crime. So they need to get them to a place that has expertise to care for them, get them in quarantine, make sure they're healthy, and then hold them as criminal evidence. And so the AZA and its members and our partners are the people who know how to care for those animals. And so building this network where a law enforcement officer or a Customs and Border Patrol official can say, okay, help me place these animals. Then they can chase the bad guys and do their investigative work, and let us use our expertise to find the place for those animals, places that can hold them, maintain a chain of evidence to support a criminal prosecution, and get them into a forever home.
One of the animals that's protected by an AZA Safe, or that is the focus of an AZA Safe program, I was told, and I'm throwing this at you as a surprise, but someone told me yesterday that the monarch butterfly is a particular favorite species of yours. Is that true?
It is. When I was in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we received a petition to list the monarch butterfly as an endangered or threatened species under the Endangered Species Act, and that really inspired me. I had the privilege to go to Mexico and see the monarch biosphere reserves in Mexico and learn about that migratory journey, which to me, animal migration is fascinating across the board, but monarch butterflies, really particularly so, because they come out of Mexico in the early spring. This generation of butterflies, they disperse across North America, going as far as the prairies of Canada, one generation after another. So 4, 5, 6 generations of butterflies, and then that 5th or 6th generation of butterflies turns around and goes back to Mexico.
In one swoop.
One swoop. They've never been there. They've never seen it, but somehow it's kind of miraculous, kind of historical imprinting. They know how to get back to Mexico and survive the winter. So it's just a fascinating story of natural history and migration and adversity and metamorphosis, and it's a bug, right? And so and people love them. They're beautiful. They don't bite. And so we had the opportunity to support conservation of this amazing species, and then also introduce people to an insect that's lovable. So just tremendous opportunity. I'm so proud of AZA Monarch Safe. So
I wish you could see how your face lit up from my perspective when I mentioned the monarch butterfly.
Yeah.
So okay, that was good. I'll have to thank whoever suggested that to me as a conversation topic.
Yeah.
So AZA is now 101 years old. It was founded in 1924. I think October. It's September now. October is the official anniversary month of your founding. As you look back, and you've been responsible head of AZA for a tenth of that, more or less. How do you think AZA has had to change? Because the zoo and aquarium industry, I hate to call it an industry, but the zoos and aquariums have changed tremendously over the last century, obviously in terms of animal care, how the animals are presented to the public, some of those things that we've already talked about in terms of the commitment we're making to conservation work and research. How has AZA adjusted to its own organization and its own approach to leading those other organizations doing that work? How have you had to evolve as your member organizations have also evolved?
Yeah, I think when we think of AZA, as I told you, we're an accrediting body, and so our standards set the tenor for the direction of our membership. But it's important to remember that we're a membership organization. So AZA, we like to take credit for progress, but really it's the aspiration of our members that drives that, and AZA becomes the way to amplify that and spread that across a whole industry. And you use the word industry, and we are uncomfortable with that term, but we are an industry. We just renewed our economic impact analysis for our membership. $35 billion of annual economic impact, 254,000 jobs. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, okay, 254,000 jobs. what other industry supports 254,000 jobs? The nuclear power industry.
Wow.
And so we're an industry of people that are powering conservation throughout the globe. And so AZA is the way that those aspirations of Tennessee Aquarium or Knoxville Zoo or Woodland Park Zoo, that their aspirations get amplified across that entire industry, and we're proud to play that role.
You're the bullhorn.
We're the bullhorn, exactly.
I love the way you presented that, the industry of driving conservation. I'm gonna have to. I will lean back or fall back on that, because that feels a much more comfortable description of who we are and what we do. Yeah,
and it is a community that embraces change and even transformational change. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Grew up going to a place called Grant Park Zoo, and that when I was a child, their kind of feature animal was a lowland gorilla named Willie B. And Willie B was named after the longtime mayor of Atlanta, William B. Hartsfield. Atlanta Airport is now the Hartsfield Airport. But I mean, when I was a kid, we would race to get to see Willie B. By today's standards, dismal. I mean, we would never condone holding of a lowland gorilla in a solitary confinement for over 20 years. But today, we have Zoo Atlanta. Same physical footprint, completely transformed, right?
Beautiful facility.
Beautiful, and a world leader in gorilla conservation. The Diane Fossey Center is co-located at Zoo Atlanta, so really has turned into one of the world's leading driving forces behind gorilla conservation, and so that is true throughout the AZA community. This willingness to not just face change, but to really transform in the face of change
and embrace it. Yeah. The Tennessee Aquariums podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee State Parks. Each issue is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. It's also your guide to exploring state parks and planning your next outdoor adventure. Subscribe today at tnconservationist.org. We mentioned accrediting. You mentioned that that's one of the primary roles of the AZA. I think I've said the word that we are accredited by the AZA so many times in this podcast. Yeah. Can you break down for people what exactly accreditation is? And I promise this is more interesting than it probably sounds, because the process of becoming accredited is it's nuanced, and it is
exhaustive,
incredibly thorough. Yeah. So can you explain what exactly that entails, and why it matters that you put forth that kind of effort and scrutinize facilities as closely as you do?
Yeah. Of course, the most important thing in accreditation is animal care, and we want to make sure that our members are really providing the highest level of care possible for animals. But our accreditation looks at not only that, but guest service, finance, governance, education, conservation, research, safety, emergency response. I mean, food service. So we for a facility like Tennessee Aquarium, if they're going to be successful in their accreditation, it's not just a year ahead, probably more like 2 years ahead of time. They're working on their accreditation submission, and they're doing mock inspections. They're getting their entire workforce engaged in that effort. They submit an application to AZA. We send a team of inspectors, so that could be 3 to 5 inspectors that are going to spend a week at Tennessee Aquarium going, stem to stern, talking to employees, talking to leadership, talking to guests, really trying to get to the nub of what's happening at Tennessee Aquarium and are you living up to the AZA standards. Then they develop an inspection report. That report goes to our independent accreditation commission. So we had 3 days of accreditation hearings here in Tampa, 32 applicants for accreditation, and they have to come and sit in front of 15 commissioners plead their case. It's I do have to admit, it's pretty intimidating. People walk into that room, especially if you've never been there before, and they're like, whoa, they're like, taken aback.
I'm sweating here just hearing about it.
And so it's really kind of exposing yourself to your peers, right? These inspectors are the experts in their field. You're exposing yourself to criticism, but what we hope is that it's constructive criticism, and we heard that a lot during this inspection cycle, that the inspection teams were respectful. They were generous in offering suggestions. So they're not just there to enforce a standard; they're there to help member facilities be better. And I'm proud that we have 3 new members. 3 smaller facilities, including 2 museums: the High Desert Museum in Bend, Oregon, and the Palo Alto Children's Museum were accredited here. Small organizations, museums that also hold animals that want to be associated with the very best in the business.
So at this point, the member count is 254. Okay.
So that all-time record. So our membership continues to expand. And I remember when I first came to AZA, I had a board member say to me, well, maybe we just need to be smaller. If we're going to hold high standards, maybe AZA just needs to be smaller. But what we've seen in the last 10 years is high standards aren't repulsive. They don't push people away. They attract people. And we have a pathway toward membership program. We're trying to be more inviting. It is intimidating. It's kind of clubby, right? And so we started a pathway toward membership, a program to be more inviting, welcoming, offer coaching to facilities that aspire to be accredited. We have 40 facilities in our pathway program. I think 11 of them are outside of the U.S. And that's an important thing to note, where our membership is more and more global. And about 10% of our membership now is outside of the U.S., far away as Hong Kong and Singapore. And,
wow.
And fully a quarter of the facilities that are in our pathway program are outside of the U.S. So.
What does that tell you, that you're seeing this shift towards international membership?
It tells me that, again, high standards are attractive. And more, I think, especially places that are interested in building tourism economies, like the Middle East. We now have 4 members in the United Arab Emirates. And I think they're trying to build a tourism economy, and they want to be able to tell potential tourists that you can come here and be confident that you're seeing the same great performing facilities that you're seeing in other parts of the world.
So in 100 years, that's a long time for an organization to exist. Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, the acronym for AZA is thrown around so often by people within our industry. Yeah. That I have to roll it back and explain what that is. But do you feel like we throw it around like NASA or FBI by the general public, that they're just acronyms that we expect people to just know? What is the public's understanding of AZA's existence and its role in safeguarding the sanctity of animal care at zoos and aquariums? How aware is the public of AZA and its influence on zoos and aquariums in this country and other countries?
Yeah, I honestly, I would say I think the public's awareness is not great. And so we're hoping more and more that our members will put that, advertisement front and center when guests are coming in, so they're seeing that kind of AZA accreditation. But also things like this podcast, talking to people. This morning here, I was on the news, 2 news stations here in Tampa, so you're talking about the association and why it's important and why accreditation is important. I think we need to do more and more of that. But I think more importantly for us is that leaders in state and national government know AZA, and so that we can be more forceful advocates for our members and for nature conservation. And I would say awareness among leaders, in national and state legislatures is high, and they know that reputation, and they and they are, and I think it's reflected in our ability to be influential in advocacy.
The Tennessee Aquarium at this point has now been accredited for 32 of our 33 years of existence. We were open in 92. We were accredited, I think, the next year. Is it usual for institutions, once they achieve accreditation, to continue to maintain it and maintain those high standards that, from our conversation, sounds like those standards are on the rise?
Constantly evolving and improving.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say we have more and more members who have joined our what we call our quarter century club. So they have maintained accreditation continuously for 25 years or more. Philadelphia Zoo and Oregon Zoo were the first two facilities to be accredited in 1972. They've been continuously accredited since then. But what's important to know is that an important thing about AZA standards is they are enforced. And so if you don't uphold the standards, you do lose your accreditation. In the last accreditation cycle in March, we said goodbye to a long-standing member, the El Paso Zoo in Texas, because they simply were not continuing to uphold our standards. We hope that they rejoin, and we had in 2015, the Honolulu Zoo lost their accreditation, and it took them 5 years. But in 2020, they regained their accreditation, and that's an important, I think, differentiator for AZA is that we enforce our standards. And if even long-standing members, if they can't meet the standards or aren't meeting the standards, they're going to lose their accreditation.
So I want to wrap this up, not because I'm not enjoying this conversation, but because as the head of AZA, you have a very packed schedule, and I'm so thankful for having you having carved out even 30 minutes to talk to us. As you look forward to the future, though, as head of AZA, what are you excited about? What challenges do you see ahead of you, and how do you plan to shape things as you move into the future in terms of AZA's role leading zoos and aquariums in this country and other countries around the world?
Yeah. Two things I'll call out. We had a keynote speaker this morning, Thaddeus Bullard, who talked about unity and talked about the power of one and talked about being better humans, really. And I think AZA accredited aquariums and zoos really have an opportunity to help accomplish that. Right? We're places where people gather, and it's not Republicans or Democrats or black or white or Hispanic or American or Indonesian. It's people are there because they have a fascination with animals. And so I really think we have a really important obligation to be these places that bring people together, and the world really needs that right now. So that's exciting to me. And then artificial intelligence and technology, I think, is a little bit scary. A little bit, yeah. And so I think that's a challenge for us to think about how technology is going to shape the future of animal experience and presenting animals to people. And I'm looking at this exhibit hall and I'm seeing lots of flashing lights and technology on display. But I think artificial intelligence is definitely something that's in our future. And I think that's a challenge and an opportunity that we need to be prepared to face.
Well, and you might hear in the background an animatronic dinosaur I've been looking at for 30 minutes. So there are a lot of, like you said, a lot of technology here in this conference hall.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to give you opportunity if you have anything else that you'd like to talk about in terms of AZA, your role with it, animals you just love to like the monarch butterfly or anything else before we wrap up this episode.
Yeah, I obviously have a passion for animals and wildlife. I've spent my career doing it. And a lot of time people will ask me, your favorite animal, and honestly, it's usually the last one I've seen. I mean, they're all just amazing, and when you kind of dig in and learn a little bit about them, they're fascinating. And so, I just want to say thank you to the Tennessee Aquarium for everything you do, for being an accredited member of the association and really taking care of nature, and now reaching out to people and engaging people. So thank you.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us here on the podcast Aquatic. And with that, I guess we will go ahead and wrap things up. But I hope the rest of the conference goes swimmingly for all of us.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
If you have an idea for a future episode of the podcast Aquatic, send it to me at podcast@tnaqua.org. While you're online, write us a review or leave us a rating. Both are free and easy ways to support the show that really do help us out with the algorithm. And until next time, remember that every drop matters.